Outsmarting people is one of the best ways to gain anything from anyone. It actually refers to the act of using one's intelligence, knowledge, to gain an advantage over someone else in a situation. It often involves anticipating the other person's actions or intentions, and taking measures to counteract them in a way that leads to a favorable outcome for oneself. Outsmarting can take many forms, from strategic planning and analysis, to subtle manipulation and deception. It helps us to rather gain a fair advantage in a given situation. In the series Cast Room of the Elite, we see Ayanokoji as always the upper hand when it comes to a critical situation. This happens only because of the way he outsmarts people. This is a video for people who want to outsmart others and become like him. Know your enemy. Before you start anything, you have to understand your opponent. Make sure that understanding your enemy should always be part of your plan. Skipping this strategy will always put you at a significant disadvantage. Due to a lack of information, it can be challenging to outsmart your opponent. Ignorance is never beneficial, so it's important to develop ways to gather information about your targets. There are different ways to gather information. One of the most worked tricks is to ask certain people specific questions about your enemy, and get closer to them. Send them as spies to gather intelligence in secret. This strategy will help you understand their intentions and way of thinking, making it easier to anticipate their next move and exploit their weaknesses. It's important to remember that information is essential to wielding power over others, and neglecting will keep you at a huge disadvantage. Ayanokoji is an excellent example of this approach, as he blackmails a group of girls and uses them as spies to gather valuable information. By understanding his enemies well, he was able to ruin their plans and obtain a voice recording of Ryan. Maintain low profile. This is a strategy where you intentionally put yourself in a position that doesn't require too much attention. This technique provides many social and psychological advantages. People are not aware of you, or they can't attack you. To be more precise, you don't occupy a strong psychological presence within their mind. So when you don't draw attention, you can outsmart and manipulate people without them realizing it was you. But on the other hand, drawing attention can give people too much knowledge about you, which makes it easier for them to understand your intentions and psychological weaknesses. If you use the low-profile approach, you might also encounter more hostility towards you. Avoid putting yourself in a position where lots of people will notice you. If you're the center of attention, you're more likely to be targeted by enemies. Therefore, it's often preferable to blend in by looking ordinary and unremarkable. To do this, you'll need to hide your brains and any exceptional abilities you may possess. You can see, Ayanokoji frequently employs the tactic of maintaining a low profile. When he was asked to join the student council, he declined, in part because doing so draws less attention, and allows him to avoid the numerous issues that could arise from such a position. Additionally, you must refrain from engaging in arguments. Expressing any strong opinions or beliefs can lead to conflicts, but if you appear neutral, you won't get into any arguments with people, which will keep you out of the spotlight and make it easier for you to outsmart them because they won't realize how dangerous you can be. Effectively denying them is a power. Use it well. Make strategic connections. Make strategic connections with people who will help you advance your goals. If you want to gain an advantage over your enemies, forming alliances is important. Because it can help you defeat your enemies. If you want someone to help you, first do them a favor. You could assist them with a problem they are currently experiencing, or you could simply treat them with generosity and respect. The goal of these actions is to make your target feel indebted so they will feel the need to help you in return. It's important to keep in mind that having no one on your side makes you vulnerable to attack. Having a large number of allies will allow you to use each one effectively against your opponents. In case of Ayanokoji, Horkita is one person with whom he establishes a close bond, and by repeatedly lending a hand to her, he is able to use her strategically over time. For instance, he forced her to withdraw from the island game in order to win, and by giving her all the credit for the victory, he pushed everyone's animosity towards her. Practice non-engagement. The key component of this strategy is to not be so impulsive and reactive when something happens. Don't get yourself entangled in the situation. While being aggressive occasionally pays off, it's usually unnecessary in most situations. It is much better to have the strategy of not engaging in unnecessary conflict. Take a step back to observe and analyze what is happening. For instance, if a fight or argument is taking place between two people, consider letting it go. Instead, observe from a distance who started it, who is acting aggressively or anxious, and many other aspects of the interaction. Ayanokoji frequently employs the non-engagement strategy. He typically just observes something in order to gather information. For example, when he witnesses K being bullied, he stays back and observes for a while in order to gather information. By not getting involved in the situation, it allowed him to strategically create a plan with K. The insight gained will enable you to manipulate and outsmart people more effectively in the future. Master the art of negotiation. When seeking victory, you should think about negotiating with key parties. Because you can find solutions without using brute force, you might want to employ this tactic. In this exchange, each party will communicate with the other with the goal of advancing their own interests. They involve exchanging something of worth, so if you don't have anything to give, be prepared to get nothing in return. You should give them something of value, such as knowledge, your assistance, particular goods, or just cash. You should also take the time to understand the psychology of the person you're negotiating with, as it will enable you to adjust your approach in order to increase the chances of a successful negotiation. For instance, if Ayanokoji decides to negotiate with the teacher, you can find the best way to talk to her by observing how she behaves. She has previous experience negotiating with people. She has a serious and blunt personality, so when negotiating with her you should be more direct and clear. You don't beat around the bush, because that will only irritate this type of person. In addition to that, any displays of stupidity or desperation make her repulsive. So when Ayanokoji goes to negotiate, he exhibits some intelligence and tenacity towards her, by mentioning that he remembers her saying that the points can be used to buy absolute. So that he uses points to buy a mark for pseudo. Finally, by employing these strategies, I'm sure you can able to outsmart anyone around you.